Sunday just wouldn't be Sunday without Harry Hill. He's here in a few moments. First on ITV1, the latest news with John Suchet.
Short slams Blair on Iraq. You're reckless, she says. Iraq prepares for a war it says the UN won't back. And Sheffield United celebrate cup victory over Leeds.
The ITV Weekend News with John Suchet.
Good evening. A senior cabinet minister tonight launched an outspoken attack on Tony Blair's handling of the Iraq crisis, accusing him of being extraordinarily reckless. The International Development Secretary, Clare, said she would resign from the government if Britain went to war without United Nations backing. Downing Street said it was bemused by her comments, which it said were counterproductive. It follows the resignation earlier today of a ministerial aide, the first member of the government to stand down over Iraq. Angus Walker reports now on the mounting Labour rebellion.
Clare Short, Cabinet Minister, Secretary of State for International Development, has fired the loudest shot across the bows of the Prime Minister as he tries to steer his controversial policy on Iraq through choppy diplomatic waters.
If there is not UN authority for military action, or if there's not UN authority for the reconstruction of the country, I will not uphold a breach of international law or this undermining of the UN, and I will resign from the government.
But she doesn't stop there. She criticises Tony Blair's handling of the Iraq crisis.
I'm afraid that I think the whole atmosphere of the current situation is deeply reckless. Reckless with our government, reckless with his own future position and place in history. It's extraordinarily reckless. I'm very surprised by it.
Earlier today, the MP and Ministerial Aide to Environment Secretary Margaret Beckett, Andy Reid, resigned from his post, unhappy with the policy on Iraq. Around half a dozen MPs like Tony Wright, who work as parliamentary secretaries for ministers, are also threatening to go. Trade Secretary Patricia Hewitt knows the MP that works with her, Anne Campbell, is also likely to resign.
I have enormous respect for Anne Campbell and the other PPSs. Everybody is concerned about this situation. Nobody wants a war. I just think it's a little bit self-indulgent to talk about what people might do if there isn't a second resolution.
But the Foreign Secretary, Jack Straw, will have done nothing to allay the concerns of those potential Labour deserters by admitting that UN objections may not stop a war.
That we reserve the right to make decisions if it is not possible to secure agreement here in the United Nations. And look, what we'd be doing in those circumstances is actually putting into practice the United Nations' own writ.
The diplomatic negotiations to get Security Council approval for a second resolution resume in New York tomorrow, and now seem even more vital, not just for world unity, but for Tony Blair's and the government's political survival.
Is that the only way?
Angus, will Clare Short be sacked over this?
I think it's fair to say that any minister making this sort of verbal attack on the Prime Minister risks being sacked. But Downing Street tonight expressing surprise at her comments, expressing surprise at the timing of her statement, considering the Prime Minister has spent the weekend engaged in last-minute diplomacy trying to get UN backing for the hardline policy on Iraq. They're also saying that Iraq is being let off the hook, if you like, by Clare Short's comments in a way. They're saying that any signs of wobbling is counterproductive and sends a signal to Saddam Hussein that he can continue to deceive the West. I'm also told that the Prime Minister would like to talk to Clare Short at some point in the near future.
Because she has obviously made things very difficult for him.
Well, yes, the Labour Party now is split from top to bottom. I spoke to one former minister tonight who thinks that 95% of the party is against a war in Iraq without UN backing. It's a difficult time for Mr Blair anyway, and he doesn't want another front being opened up. He doesn't want to have to fight on too many fronts. He wants to focus on getting UN backing from the Security Council at a crucial vote sometime this week.
Thank you, Angus. As the deadline for that UN vote on Iraq approaches, Baghdad today insisted that Britain and America would fail to get a new resolution authorising military force. It was defiant talk, but as John Irvine reports, the Iraqi people are busy preparing for war.
Today's lesson in the playground, how to take cover. These children have lived their lives with the consequences of the last Gulf War, and they're now being readied for the next one. This is a show of a different kind, a hodgepodge of young Iraqi conscripts being drilled at a base near Baghdad. At the same time, the Iraqi government continues to try to stave off war by acquiescing to UN demands. This is a weapons scientist leaving a hotel after a private interview. And this is the location where the scrapping of ballistic missiles has continued today. The UN inspectors are also anticipating the handover of documentary evidence of the destruction of VX and anthrax.
We'll see whether they will submit such a report in the course of this week.
Tonight, a top Iraqi official predicted that Britain and America would be unable to push through a second resolution, an ultimatum, in the week ahead.
And we think that these attempts will be refused by the other states, the other members of the Security Council.
Iraq believes it can do nothing to prevent the Americans from attacking, but it's not going to make it easy for them. The Iraqi leadership will try to maintain the split in the UN and buy time, divide and delay. But for how much longer can the strategy work? John Irvine, ITV News, Baghdad.
From Baghdad now to Washington and our correspondent Robert Moore. Robert, I understand that Colin Powell is confident that the UN will get that second resolution through.
Well, confident in public, deeply anxious, I think, John, in private. It's all coming down to those 6 undecided nations on the UN Security Council: Pakistan, 3 countries in Africa and 2 in Latin America. But you're right, Colin Powell saying today that he thinks America is within striking distance of a majority vote on the UN Security Council, but they accept that France is likely to veto it. However, remember that President Bush believes he has the authority already for war through Resolution 1441. What we're seeing now is diplomacy, really, which is the White House trying to help Tony Blair.
Robert, we're hearing here in London that the vote may come later in the week than Washington wants.
That's right. The vote was expected on Tuesday. I think it could slip to Wednesday or Thursday. Certainly the lobbying is continuing at the moment. What we've also learned in the last few minutes is that President Bush has totally cleared his schedule for next week. I think he's just got one engagement. This is very much a president now steadying himself for his role as Commander-in-Chief.
Robert, thank you. A look now at some of tonight's other news. The former Welsh Secretary Ron Davies has announced he's retiring from politics. It follows claims he committed gay sex acts with a stranger at a public beauty spot. He left the cabinet in 1998 after what he called a moment of madness on London's Clapham Common. ITV News has learned that there could be another firefighter strike within weeks. Union leaders are expected to reject the latest 16% pay offer. That could mean there'll be industrial action while a war is being fought in Iraq. And Prince William is at the centre of a privacy battle with the News of the World after it published pictures of him at St Andrews University. St James's Palace will be contacting the Press Complaints Commission. It said it had understood the Prince would be left alone to get on with his university life. Sport now. Southampton, Watford and Sheffield United reached the FA Cup semi-finals today. The biggest upset was at Bramall Lane, where Sheffield beat Leeds in the Yorkshire derby. Alex Thomas reports.
Having seen their side knock Leeds out of the Worthington Cup earlier this season, the Sheffield United fans turned up in hope of another upset. And they weren't disappointed, although the best chance of the first half fell to Leeds and Harry Kewell. Steve Cabba roused the home supporters in the second half with a shot that Paul Robinson did well to block. The Leeds threat continued to fade, a fierce drive from Seth Johnson, the best they could offer. And with a replay looming, they dithered in defence, and the ball fell kindly for Cabba to score the only goal of the game. A champagne moment for the First Division club, who now have 4 wins over Premiership opponents to their name, including 2 against their Yorkshire rivals.
And England had an easy win over Italy in their Six Nations Rugby Union clash at Twickenham to remain on course for the Grand Slam. Fullback Joss Lucy scoring the first of 6 tries in a 40-5 victory. And that's the news. There's more on the Clare short story on the ITV News channel. From the Weekend News team, good night.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by PowerGen. PowerGen. Power in good hands.
Hello there, it was windy today and it's going to be windy again tomorrow with some showers around and also some more prolonged spells of rain. But conditions are gradually becoming more settled, and by the end of the week you'll notice the weather has turned slightly drier but also a touch colder as well. It's not going to be dry tonight though. We've got a band of rain pushing off out to the east and also some showers still persisting there.